It was midnight, and the small town was quiet. The streets outside were empty. Only the sound of a distant dog barking and the soft hum of streetlights filled the air. Inside his room, a teenage boy named Arjun sat alone, staring at the glowing screen of his laptop. He should have been asleep, but like many nights, sleep refused to come. He scrolled through videos, music, and strange stories, anything to pass the lonely hours. His room was a mix of books, posters, and the quiet mess of someone who lived more in his imagination than in the real world. A small desk lamp threw pale light across the walls, leaving the corners dark. The night felt heavy, as if something waited outside, something unseen but watching. Arjun rubbed his eyes, thinking it was only his tired mind playing tricks. But then it happened. A soft thump against the glass of his window made him freeze. It was not the sound of the wind, not the branch of a tree. It was sharper, more deliberate. He held his breath, listening. Silence. Maybe it was a cat, he thought, or a bird hitting the glass. He leaned closer to the window, trying to see through the darkness outside. The street was still, the shadows unchanged. Shaking his head, he sat back in his chair, telling himself he imagined it. Then he heard it, a whisper, soft and clear from inside the room. Human, may I stay by your side tonight? Arjun's heart stopped. He spun around, and his eyes widened. There, standing near the corner of his room, was a figure glowing faintly in the dark. A girl, but not like any girl he had ever seen. Her hair shimmered, as if made of silver threads, catching starlight. Her skin was pale but traced with glowing lines, like rivers of light flowing under her surface. And her eyes, large, bright, and filled with a galaxy of stars, were fixed on him. Arjun stumbled back, his chair nearly tipping over. "Oh, what are you?" he whispered, his voice shaking. The girl tilted her head, her expression calm but strange. "I will not harm you," she said softly. "I only asked, may I stay by your side tonight?" His pulse hammered in his ears. He wanted to run, to scream, but his legs felt like stone. This had to be a dream, some strange nightmare born from sleepless nights and too many science fiction movies. But the girl was real, her glow casting soft shadows on his wall. Her voice was too clear, too close. Arjun swallowed hard, his throat dry. "Why are you here?" he asked, forcing the words out. The girl stepped closer, her movements slow, almost fragile. Her bare feet made no sound on the floor. "I was chased," she whispered, her eyes flicking nervously toward the window. "They're searching for me, and I cannot be found." Her voice trembled slightly, though her face remained calm. Arjun's fear shifted to confusion. "Chased? By who?" he asked. The girl lowered her gaze, her silver hair falling like a curtain. "They will not stop until I am taken, but tonight I wished for safety, and I found you." She raised her head again, looking directly into his eyes. "You are human, but your kind is strong in ways you do not see." Arjun's mind raced. Was she some escaped experiment? An alien? A ghost? He could not decide, and yet every instinct told him she was not lying. There was a sadness in her face, a quiet desperation that made his fears soften just a little. Still, the danger in her words echoed in his thoughts. If someone or something was chasing her, did that mean his house was no longer safe? Was danger already outside his window? As if answering his thought, a faint noise came again from the street. Not a thump this time, but footsteps slow and heavy, moving just beyond the glass. Arjun's chest tightened, and he turned toward the sound. The street below was darker now, as if the lights had dimmed on purpose. Shadows shifted, but no form was clear. When he looked back, the alien girl had stepped closer, standing only a few feet away. Her glowing eyes reflected fear she had not shown before. "Please," she whispered again, "may I stay by your side tonight?" Arjun felt torn in two. On one hand, he wanted to throw open the door and run as far as he could. On the other, he could not ignore the strange girl standing before him, lost and frightened, yet powerful in ways he could not understand. The room felt colder now, the air heavy with the weight of choice. For the first time in his life, Arjun realized his ordinary night had ended. Whatever was happening, it was only the beginning, and outside, the footsteps drew closer, echoing in the silence of the strange night. Arjun stood frozen in the middle of his room, the glow of the strange girl washing over his books, his posters, and even the shadows that clung to the corners. He could still hear the faint sound of footsteps outside, heavy and slow, like someone searching in the dark. But here, in his room, was something even stranger, a girl who did not look human, yet spoke in a calm, almost gentle voice. She moved closer, each step silent, her bare feet making no sound on the wooden floor. Her eyes, filled with strange galaxies, watched him with curiosity, but also with caution. It was the look of someone who did not belong, someone out of place. Her silver hair glimmered as though it held light of its own, strands catching and bending the glow of his desk lamp. Arjun's throat was dry, his body stiff, but his mind was racing. This was not a dream anymore. He could feel the air shift when she moved. He could hear her voice clearly. She was real. "I don't understand," Arjun whispered, his voice cracking slightly. "Who are you? Why here?" The girl tilted her head, like she was trying to decide how much she could reveal. Finally, she spoke in a soft, steady tone. "I cannot tell you everything, but I was followed, hunted, and I needed a place to hide." Her voice lowered, trembling for the first time. "And when I looked across this city, I felt your room calling me." Arjun frowned, confusion tightening his chest. "My room? I'm just a normal person. I'm nobody," he said. The girl shook her head slowly, the faint glowing lines across her skin pulsing softly. "Humans never see what makes them important," she whispered, "but I can see it." Her words made him shiver. He wanted to ask what she meant, but his thoughts were cut short by another sound. This time louder, a scrape of metal against pavement outside. The girl turned sharply, her eyes narrowing. "They are close," she whispered, "closer than I thought." Arjun's fear flared again. He glanced at the window, then back at the glowing girl. This was madness, he thought, complete madness. He was just an ordinary boy in an ordinary room, and yet something impossible was happening here. An alien girl, if she even was an alien, was standing in front of him, asking for shelter, and outside his window lurked whoever or whatever hunted her. He tried to steady his breath, but his heart thudded so loudly it almost drowned out the night. "You can't stay here," he whispered sharply. "If they're after you, they'll find me too. They'll find this place." For the first time, the girl's expression cracked, her calm mask falling away. Fear glimmered in her star-like eyes, a fear so raw that Arjun felt it pierce straight into his chest. "Please," she said, her voice shaking now, "just for tonight, only tonight, let me stay by your side." Her glowing hand reached out, not touching him, but close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. It was like standing near a fire, soft but alive. Arjun pulled back slightly, unsure, his thoughts spinning between logic and instinct. "What happens if I say yes?" he asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. The girl's eyes softened, and for a brief moment he saw something he had not expected, sadness, deep and heavy. "Then I will be safe, and so will you," she said. "But if you turn me away, they will not only take me, they will destroy you for seeing me." Arjun's blood turned cold. He looked around his small room, his desk, his bed, the posters on the wall, and realized none of it could protect him. Not from what was outside, not from what had already entered his life. The footsteps outside had gone quiet now, too quiet, and that silence pressed against his window like a threat. The alien girl lowered herself to sit on the edge of his bed, her glowing lines dimming as if she were trying to hide her light. Her gaze swept the room slowly, taking in the human world around her. "This place," she said softly, almost to herself, "it feels warm, alive, unlike the cold places I have run through." She looked at him again, her eyes full of quiet pleading. "You do not know me, but you are the first human I have spoken to, the first who has looked at me without trying to hurt me." Arjun's chest tightened. He wanted to deny it, to push her away, but her words struck something deep inside him. He had always felt invisible, unimportant, someone the world barely noticed. And yet here was a being from beyond the stars, telling him he mattered, that his choice mattered. The silence stretched, heavy and tense, broken only by the faint hum of the streetlight outside. Finally, Arjun let out a shaky breath. "All right," he said slowly, "you can stay, but just for tonight." The girl's eyes lit up, relief flooding her face. "Thank you, human," she whispered. "You will not regret this." But even as she spoke, Arjun knew the night was far from over. Because outside in the shadows, something moved again, and this time it was not footsteps. It was the sound of. The night stretched on, heavy and restless. Arjun sat on the edge of his chair, his eyes locked on the glowing girl who now sat quietly on his bed. Outside the window, the sounds had faded, but the silence was worse, thick and pressing, as if something hid just beyond the glass, waiting for the right moment to strike. The girl's glow had dimmed, not gone but softened, like stars hiding behind thin clouds. She looked around his room with curiosity, her gaze stopping at the shelves of books, the scattered papers, the posters of space on his wall. Her fingertips brushed across the fabric of his blanket, as though it was something strange and new. To her, his room was not ordinary. It was foreign, a place full of small human secrets. But Arjun could not stop staring at the glowing patterns on her skin. They pulsed faintly like rivers of light running beneath her flesh, alive and moving. It was both beautiful and unsettling. Finally, he found the courage to speak. "What are those lines on you?" he asked, his voice hushed as though he feared waking the shadows. The girl looked at her arm, tracing one glowing mark with her finger. "They are maps," she whispered. "Stories of where I come from, written in light on my skin. Every child of my people carries them." Arjun blinked, confused. "Maps? Of stars?" She nodded, her silver hair catching the dim light. "Yes, stars and also memories. Our history is carried with us. We are walking libraries of our world." Her words left him stunned. He had read stories about aliens, about strange civilizations, but hearing it from her own lips felt different, heavier. "You're really from another world?" he whispered, still trying to believe. The girl smiled faintly, though there was sadness in her expression. "Yes, but I'm far from it now," she said softly, "too far." Arjun leaned forward, curiosity battling fear inside him. "Then why are you here? Why Earth? Why my room?" The girl tilted her head, her glowing eyes meeting his. "Because humans fight even when they should not win. Because you carry hope even in the dark," she said gently. "I thought maybe I could find safety in that hope." Her words made his chest tighten. Nobody had ever spoken about humans like that. Not to him. He had always felt small, unimportant, just another ordinary boy in a world too big to notice him. And yet here was a girl from the stars, saying humans mattered, saying he mattered. Before he could speak, the faint scrape returned outside the window, sharper now, followed by a low humming sound. Arjun's stomach turned cold. "They're still out there," he whispered. The girl's expression darkened, her glow sharpening like a flame. "They are hunting me," she said, her voice low. "Hunters that do not forgive." Arjun shivered, pressing his hands against his knees to stop them shaking. "What do they want with you?" he asked. The girl paused, as if weighing the danger of telling him. Finally, she whispered, "I carry something they cannot allow to survive." She touched the glowing patterns on her skin, her eyes dimming with sorrow. "Inside these maps is more than memory. There are secrets, knowledge that could end their power, knowledge they would destroy me, to erase." Arjun's mind spun. He was just a boy sitting in his messy room, and yet suddenly he was sharing space with a living key to alien secrets. It was impossible, yet it was happening right in front of him, and the hunters outside would not stop until they found her. The girl looked at him again, her voice softer now. "I know this is not your war, human. I know I bring danger to you, But if you send me away now, I will not live to see another dawn." Her words sank into him like a weight. He wanted to refuse, to throw open the window and let the danger pass him by, but something inside him would not allow it. Maybe it was her eyes, filled with galaxies and sorrow, or maybe it was the simple truth. She was alone, and he was the only one who could help. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the hum outside. Arjun clenched his fists, his fear still strong, but his voice steady. "All right, but if you're staying here, I need to know everything," he whispered. The girl's lips curved into the smallest of smiles, not joy but relief. "Then you will know," she said, her voice soft but firm. She leaned closer, her eyes glowing brighter. And as she began to speak, telling him secrets of her world, of wars fought among the stars, of shadows that spread across galaxies, Arjun felt the air in his room grow heavier. He realized that his life would never be ordinary again. The girl had brought the weight of a universe into his small room, and there was no turning back. But outside, the hunters moved again, their shadows pressing closer to the glass. And Arjun knew that the dark secrets of this visitor would soon bring the danger straight to his door. The room felt smaller now, as if the walls were leaning in closer with every passing second. Arjun's heart pounded so loudly he was certain the hunters outside could hear it. The alien girl sat still on the bed, her glow faint but her eyes sharp, focused on the window as though she could see through the dark. She raised her hand slightly, motioning for him to be quiet. Then it came again, the sound of movement outside. Not just footsteps this time, but a low metallic scrape along the wall, followed by a short clicking noise, unnatural and cold. Arjun's breath caught in his throat. The girl whispered, "They have tracked me here." Her voice was calm, but her hands were clenched tightly together, the glow in her skin pulsing faster like a heartbeat. Arjun wanted to ask who they were, but he already knew the answer was worse than anything he could imagine. He crept closer to the window, pulling the curtain just enough to peek out. At first he saw nothing, only the empty street and the dim streetlight humming above. But then his eyes adjusted, and he saw them. Shadows moving where no shadow should. Tall figures, too tall, with shapes that did not belong to humans. Their movements slow but deliberate. They scanned the houses one by one, their strange heads turning with sharp, mechanical jerks. Arjun pulled back quickly, his chest tight. "They're right outside," he whispered, his voice shaking. The girl nodded, her glowing eyes not leaving the window. "They will not stop until I am in their hands," she said quietly. "And if they find you with me, they will not spare you." Her words chilled him. He wanted to scream at her for choosing his room, his ordinary life, to bring this danger into, but instead he whispered harshly, "Then what do we do? I can't fight something like that." The girl looked at him for a long moment, her eyes softening slightly. "You can fight more than you believe," she said. "But tonight, all we must do is survive." The scraping outside grew louder, this time right below his window. Arjun froze as a clawed hand, dark and sharp, slid briefly across the glass, leaving a faint mark. His stomach flipped, fear rushing like ice through his veins. He stepped back quickly, almost tripping over the chair. "They're here," he whispered, his voice no louder than a breath. The girl stood now, her posture straight and calm, though her glow brightened, as if preparing for something. She held out her hand, revealing a small, broken device he had noticed before. Its surface shimmered faintly, cracked and flickering with light. "This is what they want," she said softly. "It opens doors between worlds, but it is damaged. I cannot use it yet." Arjun stared at the strange object, unable to look away. It looked small, fragile, but the way she spoke of it made it sound powerful enough to tear reality open. Before he could ask more, a sudden loud knock hit the window, sharp and deliberate. Arjun jumped, his breath catching in his throat. The girl grabbed his arm, her skin warm, glowing faintly against him. "We must move," she said firmly. "If they break inside, we cannot hide here." Arjun's body shook, but he nodded quickly. He glanced at his door, imagining the dark hallways of his house, his parents asleep at the other end, unaware of the danger right outside. His fear deepened. If the hunters entered, his family would not stand a chance. The girl seemed to read his thoughts, her voice quieter now. They will not harm others if they only seek me. But if they see you protect me, they will see you as one of my kind. Another knock, louder this time, followed by the creak of metal as if claws dug into the frame. The window shuddered. Arjun's hands balled into fists, sweat dripping from his palms. This can't be happening, he whispered to himself. But it was, and he had no choice but to face it. The girl pulled him toward the door, her glowing lines brightening like fire. "Stay close to me," she said, "and no matter what you see, do not let go of my hand." Arjun followed, his legs weak but moving, his mind screaming for him to wake up from this nightmare. The house felt different now as they crept into the hallway, darker and colder than before. Every shadow seemed alive, every creak of the wooden floor too loud. Behind them, the sound of claws scraped again, followed by the faint crack of glass beginning to give way. Arjun's breath came fast, fear clawing at his chest. But the girl walked ahead with steady steps, her glow cutting through the dark like a fragile shield. He realized then that she was not only asking for his help, she was protecting him too. The hunters outside were monsters, and yet here in his hallway stood a girl from the stars willing to risk her life. The sound of glass finally breaking echoed from his room, sharp and final. They were inside now. Arjun's heart sank, but the girl squeezed his hand tightly, her glowing eyes fierce. "The chase has begun," she whispered, "and we must not be caught." The hallway was dark, the air heavy. Arjun's hand trembled in the alien girl's grasp, but her grip was steady, firm, filled with a strength that seemed too great for someone who looked so fragile. Behind them, the sound of broken glass echoed like the heartbeat of danger, sharp and unforgiving. Something heavy moved in his room, claws dragging across the floor, and Arjun knew the hunters were inside, searching. The girl whispered, "We must go deeper into the house." Her voice was calm, though her glowing skin pulsed faster, betraying the tension inside her. She led him toward the narrow staircase that descended into the basement, each step creaking under their weight. Arjun wanted to turn and run, wanted to shout for his parents, but fear held his voice. He could not bring them into this. He could not risk their lives. The basement smelled of dust and old wood, stacked with boxes and forgotten things. It was dark, but the faint glow from the girl's skin lit the room enough to see. She guided him to the corner, placing the broken device carefully on a crate. Arjun stared at it again, his heart racing. "What is that really?" he whispered. The girl's eyes fixed on the small machine, her voice low and certain. "It is a gate," she said, "a bridge between worlds built to open paths through space and time, but now it is damaged." Arjun felt his chest tighten. A gate, a device that could cross the universe, and it was sitting here in his basement like an abandoned toy. He shook his head, struggling to believe. "You mean you could leave Earth if this worked?" She nodded slowly, her silver hair falling across her face. "Yes, but not only leave, I could also return to where I came from, to my people, to the war that still rages among the stars." Her words hung in the air like smoke, heavy and unreal. Arjun swallowed hard, his fear mixing with something else now, curiosity, awe, dangerous wonder. If this was true, then his world was no longer just Earth, it was part of something much bigger. But the sound of claws scraping against the walls above reminded him that wonder was not enough, survival mattered more. The girl knelt beside the device, her glowing fingers running over its broken surface. Flickers of light sparked faintly like dying stars. She whispered words he could not understand, soft syllables that carried both beauty and sorrow. The device responded with a hum, but then sputtered weakly, its glow fading again. "It will not open tonight," she said, her voice heavy. "Not without more time, and time is the one thing we do not have. Arjun's fear grew sharper. Then what do we do? They're already in the house, he whispered urgently. The girl's eyes lifted to his, calm despite the storm outside. Then we hide, and if hiding fails, we fight, she said simply. Her words made him shiver, but there was no hesitation in her tone, no doubt. She believed survival was possible, even against the impossible. The floorboards above groaned, the hunters moving through the hallway now, closer. Arjun's pulse hammered in his ears, his breath shallow. He could hear the scrape of claws against the walls, the sharp hiss of air as something sniffed the scent of prey. The girl stood, her glow brightening again. They will not stop, she whispered. Not until I am gone. But if they take me, they will return for others. Your world will not remain safe. Arjun's body shook, but her words sparked something inside him, a fire he did not know he had. For the first time in his life, he felt the weight of choice pressing against him. He could walk away, pretend none of this was real, and maybe survive. Or he could stand beside her, a stranger from the stars, and face the danger that hunted her. The thought terrified him, but also made him feel alive in a way he had never felt before. The hunter's footsteps grew louder, now at the top of the basement stairs. The girl's glow spread wider, casting long shadows across the room. She turned to him, her eyes shining like twin galaxies. Human, she said softly, almost like a plea. Your kind always stands when the night is darkest. Will you stand now? Arjun's throat tightened, his fear screaming at him to run. But as the door at the top of the stairs creaked open and the sound of claws scraped down the first step, he whispered back, Yes, I'll stand. The girl's eyes lit with a fierce brightness, her hand reaching for his again. Then the shadows at the top of the stairs twisted, and a figure too tall, too sharp to be human leaned into the light, its glowing eyes locking onto them. The hunters had found their trail, the basement filled with the sound of claws, and the true chase between worlds was about to begin. The basement door creaked open, slow and heavy. Each sound of the hinges echoed like thunder in the silence. Arjun's body stiffened as the glow of two strange eyes peered down from the staircase, cold and inhuman. The alien girl pulled him closer, her glowing skin flaring brighter as though preparing to shield him. The air grew thicker, heavy with the scent of metal and ash drifting from the creature above. The figure stepped forward, its long shadow stretching across the basement floor. It was tall, its limbs too thin, too sharp, moving with an unnatural rhythm. The glow of its eyes cut through the dark like twin blades. Arjun's chest pounded, his breath shallow, every instinct screaming at him to run. But the girl's grip on his hand anchored him in place. They are hunters, she whispered, her voice steady despite the danger. They will not stop. They cannot be bargained with. If they take me, all is lost. Her words pressed against him like a weight. He wanted to deny them, to say this was not his fight, that he was only a boy in a small house in a small town. But deep inside, he knew the truth. Her fight had already become his. The hunter reached the bottom step, its claws scraping the wood with a sound that made Arjun's skin crawl. Another shadow moved behind it, then another. There were more of them, slipping into the basement like nightmares given form. Arjun's mouth went dry, his hands shaking so hard he could barely hold on. The girl raised her other hand, and light pulsed from her skin in sudden waves. The hunters hissed, their eyes narrowing, but they did not retreat. Instead, they spread out, circling slowly, their movements sharp and deliberate. Arjun felt trapped, like a rabbit cornered by wolves. His mind raced. There was no escape, not through the stairs, not through the walls. The girl leaned closer, her voice low but fierce. Now you must choose. Human, she said, her glowing eyes locking onto his. Run and forget me, and perhaps they let you live, or stand with me, and fight for more than yourself. Her words pierced through his fear. He thought of his parents sleeping upstairs, unaware of the monsters in their home. He thought of his ordinary life, of mornings filled with school, of nights spent dreaming of adventures he never believed would come. And then he thought of her, this strange visitor from the stars, her eyes filled with sorrow and strength, her voice carrying a plea she rarely showed. She had asked only one thing from him, to let her stay, to not abandon her. Arjun's heart hammered, fear and courage clashing inside him. His body screamed to run, but his spirit whispered to stay. He had always believed he was small, invisible, a boy who didn't matter. But maybe tonight he could matter. Maybe tonight he could stand. The hunters hissed again, their claws flashing in the dim light. One of them lunged forward fast, too fast. Arjun flinched, but the girl stepped in front of him, her glow bursting outward like a shield of fire. The creature struck it and recoiled, hissing in pain. Arjun stared in shock, his fear twisting into awe. She was fighting for him, risking herself, and she had no reason to. The girl turned her head, her voice urgent. Decide now, Arjun. Your choice will bind us. Your choice will decide if we live or die. His name on her lips shook him. She had remembered it, held on to it, as though it meant something. Arjun clenched his fists, his breath ragged, his heart burning. He could not run, not anymore, not when running meant leaving her alone to be torn apart. I choose to stay, he whispered, his voice trembling but strong. I'll fight with you. The girl's eyes widened, then softened, a fierce light flickering within them. Then we stand together, she said, her glow brightening until it filled the basement like a rising sun. The hunters shrieked, their shadows twisting against the light. Arjun grabbed the nearest object he could, an old metal pipe lying near the crates. His hands shook, but he raised it, his heart pounding. For the first time in his life, he was not just surviving, he was choosing. The hunters closed in, claws scraping the floor, their eyes burning like fire. The girl raised her hands, her glow sparking with power, and Arjun, standing beside her, gripped the pipe tighter, ready to face the nightmare head-on. Above them, the house creaked under the weight of the dark. The choice had been made, and nothing would ever be the same again. The basement glowed like a storm of stars. The alien girl stood tall, her body blazing with light, each glowing line across her skin pulsing with power. Beside her, Arjun gripped the rusted pipe with both hands, his knuckles white, his fear trembling inside him but no longer in control. He had chosen, and that choice gave him strength. The hunters hissed, their voices like broken machines grinding against stone. Their bodies twisted shadows, tall and sharp, with claws that scraped sparks from the basement floor. They circled slowly, waiting for the right moment to strike, their glowing eyes never leaving the girl and the boy. The air grew colder, heavy with the smell of metal and ash. Arjun's breath came fast, each inhale burning his chest, but he did not step back. The first hunter lunged, faster than his eyes could follow. The girl raised her arm, and light burst outward, slamming into the creature like a wall. It shrieked, stumbling back, smoke rising from where the light touched its dark skin. But another hunter moved immediately, slipping through the shadows toward Arjun. He swung the pipe wildly, the sound of metal hitting claw echoing in the room. The force sent him stumbling, but the hunter flinched, its hiss sharp with surprise. Arjun's arms shook, the weight of the fight crashing down on him. He was no warrior, no soldier, just a boy in a basement. But the fire inside him refused to die. If he backed away now, if he let fear win, it would mean losing her, and maybe even losing his world. The girl's voice rang out, strong and commanding. Do not let them touch you, she warned. Their claws cut deeper than flesh. They cut through life itself. Her words chilled him, but they also sharpened his focus. Every step, every swing mattered now. The hunters hissed again, their bodies weaving around the glow, their claws striking against the floor and walls. They moved like predators, patient and merciless. The girl lifted both hands, her glow blazing brighter until the basement walls shook with the force. A wave of light burst outward, knocking two of the hunters back into the shadows. But the effort made her stumble, her glow flickering for a moment. Arjun caught her arm instinctively, holding her steady. "Are you all right?" he whispered, his fear slipping through his voice. She nodded quickly, though her glow still pulsed unevenly. "I can hold them for a while," she said, "but I cannot defeat them alone." Her eyes locked onto his, and in that moment Arjun understood. His choice was not just to stand, but to fight to be more than he had ever believed he could. Another hunter leapt forward, its claws swiping across the air where his head had been only a second earlier. Arjun ducked, swinging the pipe with all his strength, the impact ringing through his arms as it struck the creature's side. The hunter stumbled, not hurt badly, but surprised again. Arjun's chest heaved with breath, sweat dripping down his face. He was fighting monsters, and he was still standing. The basement shook as more claws scraped across the ceiling, the sound of reinforcements coming. There were more of them, slipping into the house, spreading like shadows across the walls above. Arjun's heart pounded harder, but the girl's hand tightened on his shoulder, her glow flaring bright again. "This is only the beginning," she whispered, her voice fierce. "But together, we will not fall tonight." The hunters regrouped, their eyes burning hotter, their bodies weaving closer. Arjun lifted the pipe again, his hands steady despite the tremor in his arms. The girl stood beside him, her glow bright enough now to blind the dark corners of the basement. For a heartbeat, everything went still, the silence before the storm. Then all at once, the hunters leapt, shadows crashing forward, claws flashing. Arjun shouted, swinging with everything he had. The girl unleashed a wave of blinding light that shook the basement to its foundations. The clash of metal, light, and shadow filled the air, louder than thunder, fiercer than fear. And then, just as the light reached its brightest, the basement walls groaned, cracks spreading across the stone. The ground shook violently, as though the fight itself was tearing the house apart. Arjun stumbled, his vision filled with light and shadow colliding. He heard the girl's voice, sharp and urgent, "Hold on to me." And then everything shattered. Light exploded, shadows screamed, and the world around him seemed to break. The first battle had begun, but the war was only waiting.